Hi everyone, and welcome back to Finance with JCL. I'm here to try and help you on your journey to financial freedom, and a big part of that focus will be on investing and personal finance. And today, for the new or intermediate level investors out there, I've got a look at useful websites for investors. So these will be free websites you can use without registering, although there will be a bonus one at the end that I think is worth registering for, whereby you can gain a lot of financial information for your assessments on individual companies. And these are websites that I use to various degrees. If you're into investing, you look at individual companies, this is the show for you. So on with the show. Now, first up, we have the old favourite of Yahoo Finance. I find Yahoo Finance quite useful because of the wide range of information it's got. It perhaps doesn't have the history that some other websites show. It does get most of the information in there for the current position. So first of all, when you go onto a new company page, I've just picked Fevertree here for two reasons. A, I really like the company, and B, I really like their tonics. Good with the gin and tonic. With Fevertree, you can see first of all, you've got some news down here. So that's quite a nice thing. And you've got some financial graphs there and broker recommendations. Now, I don't take action on broker recommendations. It's just interesting to see, because if everyone's saying sell, then perhaps they know something that I don't. So I just have a look into that. But then you've kind of got this kind of overall view here. But the most interesting page for you, first of all, is the chart. Now, the chart I like a lot because you can go as far back as 10, 20, 30 years on the chart. Now, Fevertree's not that old. You can have a look at the history. You can change the durations, change the interval, change the type of chart. So that's quite cool. And you kind of got, what I quite like is for each section where you move your cursor, it'll tell you the different prices at that time and the date. So you can be quite precise with finding prices on certain dates or looking at the numbers. Now, I mainly use the statistics tab here actually. There's quite a long bit of information. Again, it gives you that key overview. For example, market cap and enterprise value, the trailing PE, and things like the number of shares outstanding. These are useful bits of information that you'll need when you're performing reviews of a company valuation. And it also shows you key stuff like profit margins, return on assets and equity as well. So pretty cool summary. And then I also look at the financials tab, and it splits your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow, and you can see the last few years, but not, it doesn't take you too far back, so you'll need to use other sites if you want a longer term picture. And then finally, and just for a sense check, I do look at the analysis tab, and I look down here in the bottom left corner, next 5 years growth rate. So when I'm valuing a company, I try and work out a growth rate that I think will happen. It's likely to be wrong, but you need to have a guess based on some kind of evidence. And I will then compare it to the analyst estimates, not because I think the analyst is necessarily right, but if theirs is wildly different to mine, maybe that I base mine on something that is incorrect, or they found out some information that I don't. So we'll just do a bit of a double check there. So that's Yahoo Finance. And if you're just starting out doing this, it's probably the one where you can get everything you need in terms of valuing and reviewing a company. Now, second up is Morningstar. Now, Morningstar I really like. I've got the Bank of America page up here. You can see 10 years worth of history, but it is very much in numbers format. So if you are quite numbers orientated, you can read tables really easily. For me, I quite like that. Then you'll quite like this because you've got your key financials at the top here. Revenue down to income, earnings per share, dividends and payout ratios, all absolutely key info. Book value per share, operating to free cash flow per share. So this has got absolutely the long-term view of all these key metrics. You've then got ratios here, so you can look at their net margin over 10 years, return on equity, which are both very important measures, and you can look at the growth rates over time, debt to equity over a long period of time, so you can see the trend, just not what it is today, and also the current ratio. There's loads of information here. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's very substantial. And again, you can go into the financials in a bit more detail. So you can see here income statement for the last sort of 5 years, and then the trailing 12 months with a bit more data, balance sheet and cash flow as well, which is broken down as quite a lot of detail, but also very clear. And you can kind of hover over these graph symbols here if you prefer looking at pictures. Then you can see for each of these measures what the infographic is rather than trying to read the figures. So that is absolutely excellent. Now there are other pages here, such as the insiders page. I tend to focus on the numbers that we've just looked at, but you can get a lot more information in addition to what I've just shown you. So Morningstar, if you need a lot of information and you want a lot of history, it's a really good place to go. And it's not just US stocks, you can get all sorts of stocks here. Lots of UK stocks are on here, for example. So highly recommend it, and I've accessed this without registering, so it's all freely available. Now the third one is perhaps a bit more of a left field one, but for me in terms of calculations, it's absolutely fantastic, and it's the buffettsbooks.com website. And you can see the link, which is buffettsbooks.com. And I'll put that in the description below about the links to all of these. And I've got a calculators page. Now on this calculators page, you've got all sorts of cool stuff. And your main one is your intrinsic value calculator for stocks, which will look at the book value. And also your discounted cash flow calculator, which is looking at if you want to value the company via discounted cash flow method. They do also have stuff for bonds, for example, on when to sell stocks. But these top two here are the ones that I use the most, and they're absolutely excellent. So if you're looking to calculate a valuation of a company, you've got the key metrics, which you can get off the two sites I've just shown you, the Yahoo and Morningstar. Then you might come here to use those numbers to actually calculate the value. So I think if you were being very strict and just said, I just want three, the three I've shown you for me are the top three in terms of that raw data and trying to value a company and investigate companies' numbers. I've got some other ones which are also quite useful. You've got Finviz here, which is short for financial visualizations, and it's got a lot of companies here. There's a screener. And if you look into an individual company, let's say Berkshire Hathaway, there's absolutely, again, loads of key information. Now I find this a little bit harder to read myself, but I do know people find this format a bit cleaner, so it's very much a subjective thing. You can see your charts here, and you can perhaps change the view of that. Key information, and you've got, again, a lot more news on this one actually. A lot more news going back over time. So if you're looking to see what's been published, what other people are seeing, then the Finviz one is a good place to see a lot of this news. Now I've got quite a cool one here, which is called Hypercharts. Now the Hypercharts one I don't use as much, but what I do find it useful for is if you're a very visual orientated person, or you're looking to find a bit more of a breakdown in the numbers, then Hypercharts is the place to go. So if we have a look at all companies, let's have a look at Berkshire Hathaway here. Now what this does do very nicely, if you look at their revenue here, perhaps we'll go to annual, is it breaks down actually what their revenue is made up of. So you can see it's broken down into insurance, another railroad, and the finance. Now perhaps this might be more interesting for someone like, let's have a look at Apple. So this is quite cool because you can see iPhone sales, you can see iPads, Mac, services and others. So that's actually a really interesting way of finding out the revenues of the different products. Like that, having to read company accounts and faff around with trying to find that detail. This is all pictorial. So it doesn't have loads and loads of companies. It does have these big American companies, a lot of the stalwarts and the tech companies. You see there's graphs for lots of measures, cash flow as well in graphical format, so that's quite cool. Cash, outstanding shares. Yeah, this is just the free version. There is a premium version where you can get a lot more information as well, and you can request companies. So if you are a visual person, if you are looking at charts, if you want to use charts in presentations and in your work, then Hypercharts is the place to go. And I do have a referral link for Hypercharts as well, so if you do sign up to them, I kindly request that if you could use my link that I'll link below, and that will help out the channel if you do decide to join without changing the end price to you. Cool. So that is Hypercharts. And there's another one here which is macro trends. Now macro trends is one of these ones with long-term information, mainly focused on US market, and they have a screener which is pretty cool. And if you look at an individual company, they have a lot of detailed information. So I've looked at Berkshire Hathaway, one of my favourite companies. And if you click financials, again, there's a lot of historical data going back to 2005 here. And you can plot some of this information on a graph. Now let's have a look at the price ratios, for example, and the price to book ratio, which is a very key one. So price to book, Berkshire is 1.27 as of 11th of December, and we're 13th of December today, so that's Friday, so it's pretty up to date. And look at this history going back over a long period of time. You've got 10 years in graphical format of the price to book ratio. So you've got the stock price at the top, you've got book value, and therefore your price to book at the bottom. So you can see a good time to buy would have been in June with a price to book of 0.63, and it's now way up to 1.27, so it's effectively doubled. Yeah, so it's useful again for that kind of visual information for the big companies, a lot of history, and you can see this information for all sorts of things. So if we looked at return on equity, and you've got this all the way back to 2006 here, and you can see that return on equity and how that changes over time. So again, it's a nice one to see, but in order to find out certainly stuff in this kind of nice visual format and going back quite a few years as well. So those are the free ones. I've got a little bonus one for you, which starts off as a free site, and I actually signed up for this as a free site, but I was so impressed with it I actually purchased a subscription, and this is Simply Wall Street. So Simply Wall Street, you can track your portfolio and you can kind of use it as a hub. So this is showing some of my stocks. If you scroll down, it kind of give you chronological order, what's happening when news and things happen to your stocks. So you can see here is Seritage, December 13th. They've had resignation there, and they also announced CEO transition, and they hit a 90-day high on December the 5th, so it's pulled back quite a bit since then. You can see it's down 25% in the last week. On the right-hand side, you've got things like what are the top industries in the last period of time. So let's say in the last 5 years. Surprisingly, auto components, car components are it's the best there, 285%, which surprised me. And international markets, last 5 years, Brazil is the best one, 127% up. You can also see the worst, so hopefully you didn't invest in Luxembourg market 5 years ago, because you would be quite a bit down at the market level. You can also see the things you've recently viewed, and I really like this upcoming event. So for things that might be in your portfolio, you can see when they're going to release earnings and when the next ex-dividend dates are going to be. So that is really good functionality. Now they've also got a really neat screener. So you've got 50,000 companies almost in the database, which is absolutely fantastic, really, really good. And you might say, well, I want to filter by markets, industries, or their sort of painted snowflake diagram, which I quite like. So if you wanted to find stuff that was really high value, but also had a good future potential growth, you could filter in that area. And we've got 101 companies, here, and you can filter by market cap, by score, in their different criteria, even by price to book. What's the lowest price to book on something that's good value with high future growth? Yeah, you've got some examples there. You've got loads and loads of markets here. So you've got US market, Australia, UK, Canada, India, China. There's absolutely loads. There's a huge amount of company information. And if you then go into a company, you get their particular assessment for each of these areas. And I think they've got 30 checks, so 6 checks in each of the 5 areas, so it's a score of 0 to 6. And you'll get the view of, are they below fair value in their view? You'll get your graph of the price, returns, including and excluding dividends versus the market industry. So that's a good comparator. I like this one. Now, I don't use this valuation as the be-all and end-all, but what I do is when I calculate my own, I'll do a spot check against this. It's a bit of a logic check to see whether I'm way off, or whether I'm broadly in line. As a bit of a logic check. So that's quite cool. You've got your key ratios like PE ratio, price to book, growth in a graphical format. You've got return on equity. You've also got your kind of balance sheet, debt to equity. Balance sheet in nice coloured blobs, so they're easy to read. Payout ratio, bit of analysis on the management, and then your insider trading and who owns the stock. So in terms of presentation information, again, it's got a lot of key information and it's very clearly presented in a very usable format. Now, it doesn't have that long-term history, so you might perhaps use Hypercharts or you might use Morningstar for that. But again, this is, all this information is on almost 50,000 companies, so it's very impressive. So that's the review of the individual sites. Just to finish off, I've got a couple of ways you can generate yourself some income and also some ways you can support the channel. Now, I've got 2 links here if you are in the UK. There's Quidco, which is a cashback site where you do online shopping. And if you sign up to that, we will both earn additional cashback. And then I've got a link to Numerous, and I'll be doing a video on this because this is a really exciting new company whereby you answer some general questions and you'll get personalised offers, but you get to control your data and earn by answering those questions, and you earn by taking up the offers. So do have a look at that one. And then in terms of supporting the channel, should you feel happy to do that, and I'd be very grateful, there's the Hypercharts referral link that I mentioned. And then there's YouTube, whereby you could subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this to help you on your journey to financial freedom. If you like this one in particular, if you hit the like button, that will help it be recommended to more people. And then drop me a comment actually if you are using other sites that I'm not aware of, because I'd really like to see if there's other information out there. And then finally, you could become a patron via the Patreon site to support my work. So thanks everyone for joining me on this one, and I look forward to seeing you next time.